going to move into Cryptic Corner. And last week we did a vote because this weekend is in the U.S. It's Memorial Day. What you folks in the U.K. would call like Remembrance Day. Over here, Memorial Day, we do it on, I guess, what is it, the last Monday of May, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that I got a lot of Americans in here that may know that better than me. But, so I did a poll and ran it during the last week's live stream of asking what you guys wanted for Memorial Day weekend, and overwhelmingly, because I tried to make it Civil War themed, just because that's what I grew up in. A little, the town I grew up in was like on the Mason-Dixon line in Missouri, because Missouri's the only state that's cut in half by the Mason-Dixon line. It wasn't really cut in half. It was, they draw it like that on maps, but it was really just a big circle around St. Louis, Columbia, and Kansas City, right like there at the line. And then north of that, there were rural people that wanted their slaves. South of that, there were rural people that wanted their slaves. But Nebraska and Kansas, they wanted their slaves there too. So the way Missouri was divided up is kind of funny, and it's divided up culturally like that too. There's kind of an urban strip across the center there with a lot of little cities and stuff. But north and south of that, there's very southern culture, and north of that there is rural culture. I'll just call it rural Midwest culture. And that's what I grew up in mostly. There was a kind of a mixing when you get into certain areas. But anyway, what's this have to do with what I'm talking about? I grew up in a Civil War town. So they really were all about the Civil War, and Memorial Day was the Civil War Day. So that's what I associate with Memorial Day. And that's why don't think of veteran on Memorial Day, please, because it's not something they want to hear. It's really a day for them, especially combat veterans who to remember their fallen comrades. So yeah. Anyway, but what won was the Civil War pterodactyl photo. So that's what we're talking about today in Cryptic Corner. We are going to be exploring the Civil War pterodactyl photo. And before I talk too much about it, I want to I didn't mean to have that up. Hold on. Yeah, that's just our slides, but for today's show. But we wanted to watch
Did
this.
the evolutionists just kill the pterodactyl? Or did they finally catch up to the creationists?
Obviously, there's not going to be a ton of talk about these things. And the thing is, I do believe there was talk about these things. I believe if we study history, the Confederates were able to shoot pterodactyls, back in the Civil War. And they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online. They spread these things out. And this is a historical fact. So, they spread this thing out, and it's got a huge wing length. There's a pterodactyl they shot. So, of course, these things have been around. Now, they went extinct, obviously, slowly, but surely. And so I don't believe that just because, at some point in time, coming from your perspective, that, just because they stopped talking about it means that they never saw it when we have all this evidence that they've seen it.
Hello, my name is John Pendleton, and I'm speaking to you from Zacatecas, Mexico, center of Mexico. And today I'm going to tell you of my project to attract and capture a real living pterodactyl dinosaur.
But to the Christian, it makes common sense. Of course, there could be a few still alive. That's the first sighting I've heard of in Fort Worth, Texas. I've heard of them in Arizona. A friend of mine knows where some of them live, and he's going to go catch them and put them in a dinosaur adventure land he's going to build. And I can't reveal the details yet.
They're a form of what people call pterodactyl. But if you consider them descended from some type of rhamphorhynchoid pterosaur.
Anyway, keep that last guy that popped up there in mind, Whitcomb, because we're going to come back to Whitcomb. I know these aren't all Civil War, the Civil War pterodactyl that they were talking about. They're talking about the Ropin and ones in Mexico and stuff. But probably the most famous claim that of late surviving pterosaurs is the Civil War pterodactyl legend. Now, what does that come down to? What is that all about? So, there's a couple of photos. There is one that is alleged to be real, and there's one that is alleged to be faked, or known to, like, it's said to be a known fake. I got a spoiler for you. They're both fake, but we're gonna get into that in a second here. So we have this one, and then we have, what is it? This one. Now this one is the one I say, oh, that's supposed to be a big fake, and it was used in Freaky Links, like the program, right? That's where this finds its origins at, is in Freaky Links. So they said, oh, here's this old Civil War pterodactyl photo. Everybody's like oohing and on over it, thinking it's something legitimate, you know? Oh, why wouldn't it be? But the funny thing is about these, and these are the ones that Matt Powell brings up. These are the ones that that often appear in places like what is it, the Unexplained Mysteries channel. They do a segment on it, talking about it, and some different channels like that. Places will do like Mr. Creepy and stuff will talk about it, and it's just evidence that that these creatures still exist. And this isn't the only one of these old timey photos or one of these layouts like this. There's other photos or different depictions, if you will, of here. Let's see. We got. Oh yeah, I wanted to zoom in on that. We got this one as well, where they're holding it up, and there's so many reasons why this is wrong. But when we go back to our Civil War pterodactyl, let's look at the head here. This is very Flintstonian. Usually the crest on the back of the head was some degree of, biologically speaking, was at some degree of balance with the beak, and this one appears to have like the just the rippled edge of its beak, like what you see in cartoons and things, but the organism itself didn't actually have that feature going on. There's no pterosaur with this big banana-shaped beak with a serrated internal edge. That's the idea of that is even a work of fiction, but people believe it. People look at this and think, oh, this is evidence that dinosaurs and man. And the funny thing is, because beating this drum like I always do, pterosaurs are not dinosaurs, but they are Mesozoic reptiles, Mesozoic archosaurs. So that's, if you want to put them in that category, I'm on board. However, what we see in here is obviously a work of fiction. I want to take in some different features here before we move on. So this is this one, when they were doing the what is it? So Haxon Films, the people who make Blair Witch projects, they own this image. Lauren Coleman, the cryptozoologist, he actually has this model in his museum. So this one is the one when they with the original one, where they went and took the photo for the show, and then the show's producers decided that it didn't look good enough. So he hired Stephen Wolf. That's like FX. What is equal? Sometimes you'll see him on different like Discovery style documentaries or mockumentaries and things like that. Equals MC Square Digital. I don't know if any of you all heard of them or not, but they do digital effects, and they came up with this one to be a little bit better and would look better in the film or on screen. having people look at it, because this one's, as you can see, you can't really tell what it is. That could be a rumpled up blanket on the ground, for all we know at this point. So yeah, death knell on that. Both of these images are owned and copyrighted by Haxon Film. Again, the people, Haxon Film make, I swear they make Blair Witch, but I could be mistaken. Ring would know. Ring is out there. Haxon Film, Blair Witch, right? That was their flagship. Okay, let me know if I got it wrong. I'll correct myself. But this is, again, a common thing to see. Take into to consideration some of the features. You have very King Kong like proportions to this organism. So, like, look at the structure of the head and the facial features. Here's the pterodactyl, or they called it a pterodactyl. It would be a pterosaur. Pterodactyls, they didn't really look like this. Pterodactyls also had teeth, which the pteranodon, which is what this looks like it's supposed to be, didn't have teeth and had more like a beak that was convergent with birds, with modern birds. And then here's the one from. This is really old. This is from what is it? The Lost World, like 1925. And again, you can see the similarities to the way that they were depicted in early paleo reconstructions or paleo presentations, in the way that these organisms are presented. Now, this isn't just limited to pterosaurs. Of course, they do have other organisms, like what Whitcomb was talking about before with his ropin. He thinks it's a 𝗖𝗜𝗩𝗜𝗟, which are these cool looking critters right here. And this reconstruction is not too terrible, really. The only problem I have with it is the pointed wings. This one, the one we just passed here, this one with the bat wings, is terrible. The finger placement and the way the ribbing on the wings and all this is all bad. And we'll look at that in a second here as we move through here. But this 𝗖𝗓𝗡𝗟, other than having the pointed wings and maybe some bad ribbing on this one as well, is not so bad. Not as bad as the pterosaur. Because if you look at modern reconstructions, and this is addressed in the paleo art community a lot. I follow a lot of paleo artists because I love paleo art. It's addressed a lot that depictions, especially 20th century depictions, all the way up to Jurassic Park, always depicted pterosaurs with like these pointed bat-like wings. Pointed angular wings like that are really good for small flying organisms that feed either like nectar feeders or moving through the treetops, or insect feeders like bats feeding at night. When it comes to big old organisms like we see in most pterosaurs, with some exceptions, of course. 𝗖𝗓𝗡𝗟, for example, were fairly small, but for most of them, they were thought to be soarers when they were airborne, and having rounded ends to their wings was definitely the way that they should be shown in reconstructions and in museum settings, and it looks something like these right here. So keep in mind how they're rounded, and there's no ribbing on these. They're not bats. They don't have all their fingers showing through there is ribs connected with their flight there, but they're rounded off at the tip, and that's the important thing we want to take away from this, because you'll see time and time again they are depicted with kite-like structures for their flight. This one is particularly bizarre in the articulation of its arm joints, in the way those joints are proportioned to the rest of the wing area. The head's completely cut off in this image. I couldn't find, like, there's no full version of this or whatever. But this looks more like Wisconsin or Canada than the U.S. or when I say the U.S., I know Wisconsin's the U.S. I was just making the joke about everybody wearing flannel in this image, and it looks very much like the good old boys that you grow up with in the northern Midwest. Again, the problem with this is we have these pointed wings, which, look at that. That fits perfectly. These images didn't go together or whatever, but watch the shape of the pterosaur's wings in this image as we transition. Isn't that crazy? They like match almost completely with the wrong one. As you can see, this is the wrong one. You all know I like to invert the colors on these because I think it's easier on your eyes to look at a black background with colored lettering. But this is, a red no sign. This is the bad. This is the bad, the one up top, and that's what matches up with our archaic reconstruction. But the one on the bottom is more realistic expectation of what this organism's wings would have been proportioned like and how they would have looked in life. But that doesn't stop them from taking these photos with these different pterosaur props. And they're old-timey people with rifles taking them out. Now I've seen this one presented as the original. This was the original Civil War pterodactyl. But from this one, with the quality of this image, I can't even say for certain that that's not a large bird, or even a cardboard cutout, or if it wasn't for this portion over on the I don't want to mix it up because I'm backwards on the screen. Over on the right here, poking past the frame of the building, I could say there's not even any indication that it's not painted right there on the side, but we shall see. And again, rounded wings are the way to go. This is how modern paleontology interprets the wing structure of pterosaurs, with this rounded tip. So if you see them with pointed tips, they're not being reconstructed correctly. And again, that's not like an old-timey thing either. People have done that up into the 21st century, reconstructed them with wings like this. Even educational shows like Dinosaur Train, for instance, had such representation of the pterosaur wing. This one, I find it interesting. There are things about this image that I find kind of bizarre. I do see a long curved neck here is laid over to the side, and then wings kind of bunched over themselves. But the bottom of the wings, the wing tips, specifically, I don't know why I struggled with that word, specifically, look like they might have feathers on them, or have flight feathers. So I think that this image is not a pterosaur at all, but some kind of large bird that these individuals have shot, potentially, or maybe they just found it and when they were out hunting and decided to take a picture with it. I'm not sure, but I don't see any indication this would be a pterosaur specifically. Nothing about its anatomy says pterosaur to me. But it does look like this pterosaur, the mutant radioactive pterosaur Rodan from the Godzilla franchise. That is what this reminds me of most. All right. Just the way that its neck is articulated mostly, and the way it holds its wings in relation to this image. Anyway, so that was our Civil War pterosaur. What we have going on. So, yeah, population is needed. Flying organisms like pterosaurs would need a population as well, and from what evidence we've shown from most known species of pterosaur, I believe, are that they were social organisms that lived in big groups. But yeah, dinosaur bats is the usual way that they are depicted. You know, some of the earliest reconstructions of pterosaurs depicted them. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot to. I had Whitcomb's site up on here, and I wanted to go over that real quick before we ended the segment. I don't know what I'm doing I knew that CrypticCorner didn't seem like it was taking up quite as much time as I had scheduled. Usually I'm pretty good at balancing these things out for half an hour segments. I apologize. Rewind. Let me go through the comments, what we got so far first, and then we'll go to Whitcomb's. Yes, I'm saying King Kong isn't real, Jason. Godzilla probably is. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. The Jurassic was part of the Mesozoic in the fossil bed. Anything lived near is a Jurassic deposit. Yeah, the Jurassic. The Mesozoic was made up of the Triassic, which is a really weird period. We could go into that sometime. The Jurassic is when dinosaurs really started to blossom into the dominant land organism. Some arguments can be made for the late Triassic as well, and then the Cretaceous is where most of the famous dinosaurs are from. And I say famous, I mean like the species that are most well known and most depicted in pop culture, like Tyrannosaurus Rex and Triceratops. Though there are some from the Jurassic, like Stegosaurus, are actually from the Jurassic. Allosaurus are actually from the Jurassic, but for the most part, and pterosaurs are no different. Most of the pterosaurs you see depicted in fiction are going to be from the Cretaceous. All right. And those uniforms are incorrect. Yes. I know you're making jokes about the pants and whatnot, but the uniforms for these guys are incorrect. A Civil War historian who does reconstructions of uniforms for reenactments, which is another thing that's bigger around here in the Midwest, looked at these images and like the way that the belt buckles are. They're wearing officer belt buckles, but they're everything else about them says that they're not officers. Everything else about their uniforms, there's no decoration at all for them to be officers, but they have officer belt buckles, things like that. Might get overlooked by you and I, but a historian who looks at these things would be able to pick that out in a heartbeat. Space chickens, perhaps. Yeah, space chickens, like I think Rodian might be a space chicken. Saw a rope in Oklahoma, real proof. The loins of the Lord. Goodness, you saw a rope in Oklahoma. You call it Roplahoma. Dinosaur bats. Yep, I read that comment. Would space chickens classify as illegal aliens? Absolutely. Big old organism, the technical term for heckin' huge critter. Yes, big old organism. His Arcades for the win. Ring, did you ever answer my question about hacks in film? I didn't see an answer. I know you're my pop media buff, so. Anyway, let's go to Whitcomb's website. You guys want to see, because he has a website still up about his pterosaurs. So it's interesting. He's got books and stuff up on there. We'll see. You'll see in just a second. Here we go. There we are. So why are you over there so far? Gracious. Okay, there we are. Searching for ropens and finding God. Non-fiction dragons, or pterodactyls, as described by eyewitnesses around the world, beginning in Papua New Guinea. And he thinks that he's the one who thinks that the ropen is a bioluminescent organism. So yeah, there's that. And look at some of these reconstructions again. You got this, instead of having teeth, it has this kind of ragged looking beak that is like serrated. Not necessarily how we expect these organisms to look in the wild. In reality, this is a work of fiction. LDS author Jonathan David Whitcomb wrote the revised and enlarged 4th edition of the book Searching for Ropens and Finding God. This is a sketch by Patty Carson, who saw the creature and its teeth at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in clear daylight. Compare this with the sketch below by another eyewitness, and you see a completely different animal. So what we have here is like a I don't know what you'd call it, a hybrid of, it's got a pterosaur head. Yeah, look at this tail. We've seen that before, haven't we? The sketch by 𝗖𝗜𝗩𝗜𝗟, who saw the 2 creatures at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in clear daylight in 1971. Compare this drawing by U.S. Marine with the sketch drawn by Patty Carson above. Differences in detail on the 2 sketches may be from memory imperfection, but those were very likely to be the same species and have a long-tailed ropin. So the size that ropins are depicted to be, because they generally talk about them being pretty huge, they having a long tail at that size would create a lot of drag. The author Jonathan Whitcomb looks into the storm channel at Lakewood, California, near where a dragon pterodactyl was reported to have flown in mid-2012. Whitcomb had a face-to-face interview with the eyewitnesses of the ropin. There he is with his wife. Let's see. Talking about his book. If somebody wants to buy me this book, I'll read it. I might actually I might buy it and see if I can get it on like a used copy or something. It'd be worth reading. I like cryptozoology books, especially ones by Creationist. They're always a fun read. Paperback, Searching for Ropin and Finding God, 4th edition. So he's still putting it out. It's got a few different volumes. Live pterosaurs in America, modern pterosaur, live pterosaur in Australia and in Papua New Guinea. And there's our picture of the Civil War. This photo, early in 2017, was examined in detail by 2 U.S. scientists. Clifford, I'm going to probably mispronounce this name, 𝗖𝗩𝗟𝗜, and Jonathan Whitcomb, and found to have a genuine image of a modern pterosaur. This is no joke, but a sincere investigation into an old photograph. So, scientist Jonathan Whitcomb has decided that the pterosaur that is copyrighted by Haxon Film as a piece of art that they used in their media production is authentic. So good on ya, equals MC Square Productions, or was it Digital Art? Equals MC Square Digital Art. Good on you for making a prop so good it'll fool an evangelical, but then again, evangelicals are fooled by grifters like Kent Hovind all the time, so, it is what it is. All right. So again, this time for real, I'm going to wrap up Cryptic Corner, and that's more like it. That's the time frame I had it scheduled for. I was wondering why it was seeming so short. Do see that Mr. Lizard. Does Whitcomb have a YouTube channel? I think he does. I don't think that I picked it. That I picked it as something we were going to talk about today. We do have some more creationist nonsense coming up in Creation Watch in just a moment. So stick around for that, Mr. Lizard. We're going to deal with some other wild claims. But you will probably be familiar with it, Mr. Lizard. It seems like it's something that you would already know about. BigZebra.com. I once created a dating profile. I am Godzilla. The profile was elaborate, but I remember writing that I was looking for a girl who would help when I was tangled up in overhead power lines. The belt buckles just say U.S. All soldiers had them. They're not actually buckles on belts that hold up pants. The belts hold up bayonets, scabbards, and percussion cap pouches. Thank you, Godless Scummer, for clarifying on that. I appreciate it. I will look into that if and when I do a longer, it would probably be a written format response to the claims about this video, or if I see somebody else put something out, I'll definitely bring that up. David Whitcomb is a common name in science and medicine. Really, there are other David Whitcombs out there. That doesn't surprise me, though. I don't think that that's that this particular David Whitcomb is who they had in mind, though. Are they?